Scorpio, there is something you have carried with you for so long that it has almost become part of the air you breathe, something that began when you were still small enough that your feet didn't reach the end of the bed, when the house was dark and quiet and everyone else was asleep, but you were awake with a strange, calm certainty that you were not alone. You remember it, even if you've never said it out loud. That feeling of a presence beside you, not looming, not threatening, but quietly watching over you, as if it had been there since the very beginning, waiting patiently for you to grow into the language to recognize it. Adults might have called it imagination, a vivid mind, an invisible friend, but deep inside you always knew this was different. It didn't feel like a fantasy you were making up. It felt like a recognition, like a soul remembering another soul. As the years went on, you learned to silence that knowing because the world around you did not have space for it. School, rules, logic, routines, responsibilities, everything told you to ignore what couldn't be measured or explained. And yet, even as life became louder, there were still those nights when you woke up with that same familiar awareness. Your body still, your mind suddenly awake, your heart strangely calm, as if something unseen was sitting beside you in the dark, saying, "I'm still here, I never left." When you look back now, you can trace its fingerprints across your life. The near misses, the close calls, the accidents that almost happened but didn't. The decision you changed at the last minute that ended up saving you from a situation that would have broken you. The conversation you just happened to have on the exact day you needed it most. The intuitive no that rose up inside you when everything on the surface seemed fine. The way you often felt like someone was steering you quietly away from roads that led to unnecessary destruction and toward paths that, while still difficult, were strangely aligned with your growth. Scorpio, this is not randomness. This is not just luck. A spirit has watched over you since you were small, and even if you couldn't name it, your soul has always felt it. You've always sensed that your life did not unfold like everyone else's, that your path has been more intense, more disruptive, more transformational, as if you were constantly being pulled into situations that forced you to shed old versions of yourself over and over again. Part of you may have wondered if you were cursed, if you were doing something wrong to attract this level of upheaval. But what if it wasn't punishment? What if it was preparation? What if every collapse was guided, every ending timed, every heartbreak allowed only to the degree that it awakened something deeper inside you? This is the language of the spirit that's been walking beside you. It speaks through turning points, through inner nudges, through strange, undeniable coincidences that always seem to arrive when you are standing on the edge of a decision that will alter your life. You were never meant to be an ordinary character in an ordinary story. Scorpio carries a different frequency, an emotional and spiritual depth that makes you more sensitive to what others don't see. Long before you had words for it, you noticed things. You saw when someone's smile didn't reach their eyes. You felt tension in a room before anyone spoke. You could sense when something was off, even when nobody admitted it. Children are often more open to the invisible, and you were no exception. Except your perception didn't fade with age. Instead of growing dimmer, it became sharper, more refined. You might have gone through a phase of trying to shut it down, numbing yourself with distractions, busyness, or overthinking, but the core of you could never fully turn off that inner radar. This is because your guardian spirit has been amplifying your natural Scorpio gifts from the beginning, tuning your intuition, expanding your emotional range, teaching you to read beyond the surface. When you were alone in your room talking to someone no one else could see, when you made up stories or conversations that felt strangely guided, When you had the sense that someone understood you even when no human around you did, those were not signs that something was wrong with you. They were signs that something had already chosen you. This spirit did not attach itself to you by accident. It is part of a larger agreement, a soul-level understanding that existed before this lifetime even started. You came here knowing, at some level, that your path would be intense, that you would walk through losses, transformations, endings, and rebirths that would stretch you far beyond what most people ever experience. You knew you would carry both deep sensitivity and strong emotional power, a combination that can either shatter someone or turn them into a quiet force of healing and insight. Because of that, you did not come alone. You came with backup. This presence has stood beside you in every critical moment. The night you cried yourself to sleep, thinking no one would ever truly understand you. The day you were betrayed by someone you trusted, and you felt like the ground had disappeared. The moment you stared at the ceiling and wondered if it was worth continuing. In those moments, when your mind was too overwhelmed to think clearly, and your heart was too heavy to hope, something deeper took over. Your feet still moved, your lungs still breathed, your eyes still opened the next morning. That is the quiet work of the Spirit that has been holding you up from behind the scenes. You may feel its presence more strongly at certain times, during periods of grief, when the air feels thick but you somehow find a strange stillness inside. During moments of profound clarity in meditation, prayer, or quiet reflection, when you suddenly see your life from a higher vantage point. During emotional breakdowns that mysteriously lead to breakthroughs, where you come out of the other side with a new understanding you never had before. You may feel it physically, a softness on your shoulders when you're breaking down, a cool or warm sensation on one side of your body, a gentle pressure in your chest when you ask for guidance, a tingling at the back of your neck when something is trying to get your attention. You may have noticed certain symbols following you through life, a particular animal, a recurring number sequence, a dream character that reappears at turning points, a natural element like water that always calms and realigns you. These are not just aesthetic details of your story. They are signatures, calling cards, reminders that you are not walking blind, even when you feel lost. And now, Scorpio, the reason this presence is revealing itself more clearly is because you are entering a phase where unconscious protection is no longer enough. You are being invited into conscious partnership. For years, this spirit has worked in the background, intervening where it could, guiding you through instinct and intuition. But now, your awareness has grown. You're starting to question your patterns, to re-examine your past, to sense that there is more to your life than just surviving the next crisis. You are being called to participate in your own guidance, to listen more actively, to collaborate with the invisible support that has always been there. This does not mean giving your power away or outsourcing your choices to something outside of you, quite the opposite. It means realizing that this presence has always been a reflection of the highest part of you, the part that remembers who you really are when the rest of you forgets. You strengthen this connection not by forcing anything, but by acknowledging what is already true. Lighting a candle and quietly saying, "I know you're here. Thank you for protecting me," begins to shift the relationship from one-sided to mutual. Asking for support before an important decision and then paying attention to the subtle feelings, signs, and synchronicities that follow opens new lines of communication. Taking 5 minutes a day to sit in silence, breathe slowly, and let your racing thoughts settle creates space for guidance to rise from underneath the noise. Keeping a small notebook for dreams, odd intuitions, and strange coincidences helps you track the patterns your spirit has been drawing in your life. These are simple acts, but done regularly, they transform your journey. You start to feel less like life is happening to you, and more like you are co-creating it with something wise, compassionate, and deeply loyal to your soul's growth. Of course, it's important to hold all of this with grounded wisdom. This isn't about abandoning practical decisions, ignoring your mental or emotional health, or living entirely in the unseen. You are still a human being in a physical world, and your choices, actions, and responsibilities matter. Think of this story as a spiritual metaphor, a symbolic lens for understanding your life from a deeper perspective rather than as a rigid script you must follow. This narrative is a mirror, a reflection of a potential timeline, a story whispered into the universe for those who are meant to hear it. It is not a command or a fixed prophecy, but a gentle thought experiment for your soul. If you feel something in your chest soften as you listen, if images from your own childhood rise up, if tears come to your eyes without a clear reason, that is your intuition saying, "There is something here for me." In that case, take what resonates. Hold on to the pieces that bring clarity, comfort, or a sense of recognition. If it does not resonate, let it pass like a cloud across a wide sky, untouched, unforced, because not every story is meant for every heart. You remain the final authority over what you allow to shape your beliefs and your spirit. What this message ultimately wants you to remember is simple, even if the path has been anything but. You were never doing this alone. You were never navigating this maze without a map. When you felt different from your family, misunderstood by your peers, too intense for your surroundings, you were never truly isolated. There was a presence sitting beside you saying, "Keep going. One day this will all make sense." When you were brought to your knees by loss or betrayal and somehow still stood back up, you were not weak for breaking. You were strong for rebuilding, and you did not rebuild alone. When your life took sharp turns that you didn't choose, but later realized led you out of situations that were killing your spirit, you were not abandoned by life. You were being redirected by something that could see further than you. So as you move forward from this moment, Scorpio, let this awareness settle into your bones. A spirit has watched over you since you were small, and its message is arriving now through your own awakening. It's saying, you are stronger than you realize. You are more guided than you know. You are more connected than you have been taught to believe. Your role is not to have all the answers, but to stay open, to keep listening, to trust that when your gut tightens, when your heart lights up, when your dreams repeat a symbol, something is speaking to you. You do not have to figure everything out tonight. You just have to be willing to walk with the invisible companion that has already walked with you through every dark hallway and every dawn. Honor this presence. Thank it in the quiet, work with it consciously, and watch how your path begins to feel less like chaos and more like a deeply intentional journey, one in which you were never, ever truly alone.